Welcome to the Female Stoic podcast. My name is Stephanie Poppins, and I am an advocate for literary empowerment. That means I believe the examples set by the literary masters can broaden our life perspective, create increased self-awareness, and empower us to overcome the obstacles we encounter here in the 21st century. By listening and referring what we hear to Stoic philosophy, we can foster a strong sense of self and navigate the world more effectively. This podcast takes the form of both discussions and meditations. And if you like what you hear, you might consider looking me up on my socials, where I post empowering videos every day. Or you may like my classic audiobooks and original stories available on my website, newworldbooks.uk. Happy listening. Hello, and welcome to episode 46 of the Female Stoic podcast. Today's episode is entitled Stoic Resilience with L.M. Montgomery and Emily of New Moon. Emily of New Moon is a story I have just started recording for Insight Timer. You can find the tracks available there, and it is a wonderful story because L.M. Montgomery was quoted as saying it most closely reflected her experience of this crazy journey we call life. If you don't know the story, Emily is a young girl whose writing to her is essential to her well-being as eating, drinking and sleeping. The story is Edwardian in character and is about a little girl whose father, when he was alive, encouraged her to pursue this creative outlet by giving her a pad of paper and the freedom to roam outside, where she, just as L.M. Montgomery, got much of her inspiration. Emily is often overcome by ideas, inspiration and enthusiasm. These moments she refers to as the flash, where she hears a beautiful phrase or thinks of the perfect way to describe something and is so thrilled she cannot wait to write it down. This, as with L.M. Montgomery herself, is a coping mechanism for her when she is angry, frustrated or lonely. And as we have seen in a previous episode about Emily Dickinson, an American poet born slightly later than when this story takes place, there are similarities here. Check out the previous episode to find out more. And if indeed you would like to find out more about writing to enhance your Stoic journey, check out my course, 10 Days of Stoic Journaling, or if that's too much of a commitment, a working week Stoic reflection, amongst others, at Insight Timer. So let's take a look at this theme of resilience and see how it is manifested in Emily of New Moon. Emily's fiery personality often clashes with stern rules that are set by her Aunt Elizabeth. Whilst naturally highly strung, L.M. Montgomery's protagonist often chooses to swallow her pain in front of others, refusing to let cruel classmates or her unforgiving aunt break her spirit. Here we see links with this Stoic idea of mastering one's inner world. This is aligning perfectly with Emily's creative process. She is unable to openly express her deep, intense emotions without judgment from others, so she channels them into private spaces, most notably her garret. Writing on the back of old bank statements serves for her as both a therapeutic outlet and a Stoic method of processing her suffering rationally and creatively. When she refers to the flash, these moments of inspiration, we can align those with Stoicism, which requires learning to accept reality whilst focusing on what is within one's control. Her control is her personal craft, choosing to challenge her energy into this craft rather than let her emotion overpower her. When Emily loses her father, this bitter grief she experiences is slowly transformed into a quite enduring acceptance, which of course relates to this Stoic idea of amor fati, accepting what we cannot change, the love of fate, as it were. Both Ellen Montgomery and her protagonist here in life are painted into a corner, if you like. They are using emotional resilience as a way to cope. They are channeling their emotions through writing as a way to make sense of their experiences without their emotions overpowering them. Both being most highly passionate, imaginative, and deep feeling, we would assume from the outside looking in, this conflicts with this Stoic ideal of remaining unbothered by external events, seeing them as indifference. But in fact, what both Montgomery and her character are doing here is refusing to be moulded by these rigid puritanical expectations, societal expectations of the time, and adapting, showing respect to the system they find themselves in, but maintaining their intellectual and creative independence, guarding their right to their own voice, protecting their virtue, as it were. These are powerful lessons for us. Instead of succumbing to despair, they're embracing the challenge. They are developing coping mechanisms and they are channeling their focus into something positive rather than negative. Of course, as we know as Stoics, the externals are ever-changing, are chaotic, and what Montgomery is seeking to do here, I suggest, is move away from that in order that she can cope with the demands her life places upon her. Her character here is quoted as saying, "I can bear it when other people have a bad opinion of me, but it hurts too much when I have a bad opinion of myself." In order to protect her virtue, she is finding a way she can live with herself. She is finding a way she can channel her energy into something that promotes her inner peace. "If it's in you to climb, you must," she says. "There are those who must lift their eyes to the hills. They cannot breathe properly in the valleys." Channeling her energy, channeling her focus is Stoic resilience, I argue. This ability to protect her inner peace at all costs, which of course mirrors this neutrality of existence that Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius refers to, this idea that life itself is simply a canvas or a setting, and its moral weight is determined entirely by the choices, actions, and perspectives we bring to it, the choices we make, the focus we adopt. By adopting this philosophy, we can so reframe how we handle challenges and, of course, successes. Stoic philosophy is removing us from the role of victim of circumstance. It's putting us in the role of active creator, which is exactly what is happening here. If life itself is a neutral space, we can dictate whether an experience becomes a tragedy or a catalyst for growth. When we stop expecting life to be fair or good, we free ourselves from needless suffering, which is what Montgomery is doing in this book. She is not fighting the neutral reality of the world. She is focusing on how to respond to it productively, how to channel her energy and her focus into something that is really quite beautiful, something we as readers and consumers can so benefit from today. What stands in the way becomes the way, says Marcus Aurelius, and this is my point here today. Stoic resilience means we understand there will be challenges, there will be difficulties. We are not seeking to ignore the fact. We are not seeking to ignore our emotive responses, but we are seeking to channel them in order to be more resilient. As I've spoken to you before about this negative visualization, that is the beauty of that particular technique. So Aurelius is arguing external events are entirely neutral. And there is a trap. We tend to, if we are not focused, if we are not careful, label unwanted events as misfortunate. But he is saying we should understand this event cannot harm our character. It is an external. Emily's father dying is an external. The way she responds to that, once she has gone through the process of grief, and even in the process of grief, as she is suffering, the way she responds to that is within her power of control. If we choose as Stoics to respond with patience, integrity, this resilience can transform obstacles in our life into a triumph of self-control, something we can celebrate, something we can be proud of. So let's look at actionable steps we can take in our life to do this. When difficulties arise, at that point, as I always say, the power is in the pause. We pause our story. We stop this immediate urge to complain or feel victimized, but we see the action, the event as something that's external to us. It is not representative of who we are. We are seeking to create a distance between the event and our inner citadel, the protection of our inner peace. Today, when we consider in our journals a difficult event, something that has been a challenge, my suggestion is to reframe that narrative. come to the point where we can say the event itself is an external. I am not going to label it good or bad. I am going to focus instead on my response to it, the choice I have on how I respond to that external. Which strength do I need to call upon in order to be able to cope at this time? Is it patience? Is it courage? Is it humility? Which one of the Stoic tenets do I need to call upon? In Montgomery's Emily of New Moon, Emily deals with her father's death by coping through creative expression. She composes poetry in her head. She writes secret therapeutic letters to her father that, of course, she does not post. This allows her to safely process her emotions and daily frustrations in a safe place. While her strict Aunt Elizabeth forbids her from using her precious writing paper, Emily learns to compose stories and poetry entirely in her head, drawing comfort from her imagination. And she bonds with her eccentric cousin Jimmy, who also writes poetry in his head and finds a sympathetic outlet in her kind Aunt Laura and her new friends. Montgomery herself faced real difficulties in her own life, a demanding marriage to a depressed husband, this isolation of caretaking, a dual existence as it were. She compartmentalized her struggles, maintaining a cheerful public persona and writing optimistic fiction whilst pouring her grief, her anxiety and her trauma exclusively into her private journals. Writing for her was catharsis and a vital emotional outlet where she could process her fears regarding the world wars, family tragedies, and an exhausting decade-long publishing lawsuit. There were meditative walks she took in the countryside to experience what she called this flash, moments of intense emotional ecstasy, spiritual tranquility, and connection with the natural world. Just like her characters, she used her inner sanctum to escape the trauma. She used her storytelling as an outlet for that trauma, but she fiercely guarded her virtue and her public reputation, ensuring that this internal despair did not bleed into her successful novels. This is resilience at its finest. Coping with the external demands of life and acknowledging the destructive nature of fear. She said, "Fear is the original sin. Almost all of the evil in the world has its origin in the fact that someone is afraid of something. It is a cold, slimy serpent coiling about you. It is horrible to live with fear, and it is of all things degrading." She understood that there were so many reasons for her to be scared. There were so many external forces attacking her inner citadel at all times, and it was up to her to find a way to keep those walls high, which is, in Emily of New Moon, exactly what she did. In one of her letters to G.B. Macmillan, she said, "I grew up out of that strange, dreamy childhood of mine and went into the world of reality. I met with experiences that bruised my spirit, but they never harmed my ideal world. That was always mine to retreat into at will. I learned that that world and the real world clashed hopelessly and irreconcilably, and I learned to keep them apart so the former might remain for me unspoiled. I learned to meet other people on their own ground, since there seemed to be no meeting place on mine. I learned to hide the thoughts and dreams and fancies that had no place in the strife and clash of the marketplace. I found that it was useless to look for kindred souls in the multitude. One might stumble on such here and there, but as a rule it seemed to me the majority of people lived for the things of time and sense alone, and could not understand my other life. So I piped and danced to other people's piping, and held fast to my own soul as best as I could. And this is my point here today. In spite of external forces attacking us, we must remember this is Stoic survival. We can protect our inner citadel if we so choose through daily discipline. Whether we write, sing, create, whether we build, manifest, or play, we are constantly aware we are in control. We have the choice on what to focus on, and it is our duty to our inner virtue to do so religiously, in a disciplined, informed way, so that we are always protecting our inner peace. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Hey, Stephanie here. Thank you for listening to the Female Stoic podcast. It is an honour, and I just want to say I really appreciate you being here. It's amazing the power of women in literature and the Stoic messages they have to share. Please, if you can, return the favour by spreading their words and sharing this podcast far and wide, so more of us can benefit from their wisdom. And don't forget to leave a review if you like what you heard. See you next time.